It had always been said that the Malone Sons office building had a sense of foreboding about it. The ominous brick and mortar behemoth towered over the downtown district with an unsettling grandeur. Its tall windows mirrored the cold, heartless moonlight, casting an eerie glow over the desolate streets below. To most, the sight was unsettling. To me, it was another night on the job. I, Jacob Kessler, the unfortunate custodian of the night shift. It was around 2 in the morning when I made my way through the hauntingly silent corridors, the echoing click-clack of my boots being the only sound that broke the daunting quietude. Every night, I had the same routine. Starting from the ground floor, sweeping, mopping, emptying trash bins, then moving up 1 floor at a time, until I reached the 13th floor, an unlucky number for some, but a strange harbinger for me. This floor was different. The layout was the same, but it felt heavier, denser, like stepping into a room filled with invisible fog. But tonight, as I inserted my master key and turned the doorknob, a chill wind slipped out, striking my face like a cold, dead hand. I shivered, attributing the sudden cold to a malfunctioning AC system. The lights flickered as I entered, casting strange shadows on the walls that danced and cavorted in the dimming luminescence. I ignored them, focusing on my task. I started with the office cubicles, aligning chairs and emptying dustbins. Then I moved towards the center where the large wooden conference table stood like a monolith. As I wiped the table clean, my eyes caught something in the reflective surface. A figure standing behind me. My heart skipped a beat, my breath hitched in my throat. I turned around in a flash, but there was no one there. I laughed nervously, blaming it on the late hour and my overactive imagination. Then I heard it, a whisper, soft, almost like the rustle of papers. I turned around, squinting in the dim light. Nothing. But the whisper grew, swirling around me like an icy breeze. It was a voice, a woman's voice. "Help me," it pleaded in a mournful whimper. The mop handle slipped from my trembling hands, clattering onto the floor. The sound echoed through the silence like a gunshot, making me jump. I searched frantically for the source of the voice, but found no one. "Who's there?" I stammered, but my voice seemed to be swallowed up by the dense atmosphere of the floor. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the room, bouncing off the walls, invading my eardrums. It was full of such terror, such pain, it felt like a physical blow. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the scream pierced through, making my vision swim. I fell to my knees, gasping for breath, heart pounding like a sledgehammer in my chest. As suddenly as it started, the scream stopped, plunging the room back into its usual eerie silence. The deafening silence was worse than the scream. It pounded against my ears, against my skull. I looked up slowly, my hands still shaking. The room was the same, chairs in order, trash bins empty, the ominous table gleaming under the dying lights. The same, yet completely different. An echo of fear reverberated through the chilling emptiness. In the hollow silence of the 13th floor, the true horror of my midnight shift descended upon me. I was not alone in this towering fortress of shadows and echoes. Something was here with me, hidden within the grim specter of the office building. Something that did not belong to the realm of the living, and the night was far from over. After the echoing scream subsided, I sat there in the cold, chilling silence, heart pounding like a drum inside my chest. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I felt a chill air brush past me, rustling my hair and work uniform. Slowly, gathering my scattered courage, I stood up, leaning against the conference table for support. I glanced around the room one more time. The desks sat innocently in their places. The trash bins stood empty. The chairs were neatly arranged. It was as if the horrifying events of a moment ago had been nothing more than an illusion. But the ringing in my ears, the taste of terror in my mouth were all too real. I knew I had to get out. As I moved towards the door, I felt it again. That feeling of being watched, of 1,000 unseen eyes following me. I shivered, the back of my neck tingling with cold dread. The whisper returned, fainter this time, like a soft sigh in the wind. "Help me!" The voice was feeble, soaked in despair. It echoed around me, wrapping me in its cold embrace. As much as I wanted to run, something held me back, a strange, indescribable feeling of empathy. The voice was not threatening, but desperate. A plea from the darkness. Against my better judgment, I decided to investigate. Maybe it was the exhaustion playing tricks on me, or maybe it was the numbing fear, but something compelled me to find the source of that voice. I approached the old filing cabinet nestled in the corner of the room. The flickering light made the shadows dance around it, making it seem far more menacing than a piece of office furniture had any right to be. I opened the first drawer, the rusty hinges screeching in protest. Inside were files dating back decades, forgotten stories of countless employees. As I rummaged through the dusty files, one caught my eye, a file marked "Confidential." I pulled it out, the dust making me sneeze. I opened the file and a black and white photograph slipped out onto my lap. It was a woman, beautiful, with a radiant smile. But her eyes held a certain sadness, a deep melancholy. The moment my eyes fell on the photo, the temperature in the room seemed to plummet. An icy wind brushed past my face, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I could hear the soft whispers again, this time clearer. "Help me, Jacob!" I dropped the photo, backing away in horror. The voice wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It was real, and it knew my name. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, casting wild shadows around the room. Papers flew off desks, swirling in the air like a sinister snowstorm. The whispers grew louder, turning into a desperate cry. "Help me!" Then, as abruptly as it started, everything stopped. The papers fell to the floor. The lights returned to their constant dim glow. The silence returned, thicker, more suffocating than before. I was left alone, in the heart of the eerie quietude, the chilling reality sinking into my bones. The 13th floor held a dark secret, and I was right in the middle of it. I picked up the photograph again, staring into the woman's eyes, the same eyes that were now reaching out from beyond. It wasn't just a late-night shift anymore. It was a plea from the past, and a reluctant custodian's chilling ordeal in the lonely corridors of Malone Sons. The darkness of the night held a deeper, terrifying darkness within, a darkness that was slowly engulfing me. The rest of the night passed in a haze of fear and confusion. Every creak of the old building sent shivers down my spine. Every flicker of the lights seemed like a premonition of another encounter with the unknown. Yet, the hours trickled by without further incident. As the first light of dawn started to seep through the tall windows of the 13th floor, I made my way back to the ground floor, the woman's photograph clutched in my trembling hand. The once lively office building felt like a haunted house with shadows lurking in every corner. Exhausted and terrified, I returned home. The image of the woman, her whispers, and that horrifying scream followed me into my dreams, turning them into nightmares. I was back at the office the next night. Fear gnawed at my sanity, but I had a job to do. As I made my way to the 13th floor, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open to the same chilling silence. I found myself glancing around nervously, half expecting the woman to appear out of thin air. The night progressed without any strange occurrences, allowing me to catch my breath. But just as I was about to let out a sigh of relief, it happened. The lights flickered, plunging the floor into an abyss of darkness. And then the woman's mournful voice echoed again. "Help me!" I felt a hand, cold as ice, brush against my arm. My scream was muffled by the enveloping darkness. I ran towards the door, but tripped over something, sprawling on the cold floor. As I got up, my hand brushed against a metallic object. It was a locket, intricately designed with a hauntingly familiar face engraved on it. The woman from the photograph. Tears welled up in my eyes. This wasn't just a ghost story anymore. This was a connection, a desperate plea from the past. I could feel her pain, her longing for release. I clutched the locket tightly, a sense of determination replacing my fear. "I'll help you," I whispered into the darkness, hoping my words would reach her. The lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room in an almost comforting glow. I found myself staring at the locket, and then back at the photograph I had brought from home. Who was this woman? What had happened to her? Why was she trapped in this building? As I delved deeper into the mystery, I found a strange comfort in my task. Yes, it was frightening, but it was also a quest, a mission. I, Jacob Kessler, the night shift custodian, was tasked with freeing a lost soul. I didn't know how or why, but I knew I had to help her. As the night shift came to an end, I left the building with a renewed sense of purpose. As I walked out into the breaking dawn, I couldn't help but feel that the woman was watching me. Only this time, I didn't feel afraid. I was ready to uncover the hidden secrets of Malone Sons. I was ready to face the terrifying mysteries of the 13th floor. The night shift would never be the same again, but I was prepared. For her. The haunting whisper of "help me" was no longer a chilling horror, but a call to action, and I was ready to answer. Days turned into weeks as I researched every possible lead about the woman. I dug through old newspaper clippings, scrolled through online records, and spent hours in the local library searching for anything that could lead me to her story. Finally, my perseverance paid off. I found her in an old city newspaper. The headline read, "Tragic accident at Malone Sons claims young secretary." Her name was Elizabeth Harper. She had been working late when a freak accident claimed her life on the 13th floor. Armed with this information, I returned to the office building. I felt her presence stronger than ever. The chill seemed less menacing, the whispers less eerie. Now they seemed like pleas of a troubled soul, unable to find peace. "Elizabeth!" I called out, standing in the heart of the 13th floor. "I know what happened to you." The lights flickered, and I felt the atmosphere grow dense. I pressed on. "I know you're in pain. I know you're lost. But you don't have to be anymore. You can move on, Elizabeth. You can find peace." The wind picked up, whirling papers around the room, and I heard her voice clearer this time. "How, Jacob?" I held up the locket. "Through this. This belonged to you, didn't it? This is your way out, Elizabeth." Suddenly, the locket jerked out of my hand and hovered in midair, glowing with an ethereal light. The room filled with a blinding brightness, and I saw her. Elizabeth Harper, as beautiful and tragic as in the photograph, her eyes brimming with sorrow and hope. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice echoing around the room. With that, she reached out for the locket, and a rush of wind swept through the room. As the light dimmed, I saw her figure fade, disappearing into the locket. Then, silence. The oppressive atmosphere of the 13th floor lifted. I could breathe easily again, the cold dread replaced by a comforting warmth. Elizabeth Harper was no longer a prisoner of Malone Sons. She had found her peace. I left the locket on the conference table and walked out of the room. As I shut the door behind me, I felt a strange sense of calm. I was alone again, but the haunting loneliness was replaced by a triumphant solitude. The weeks that followed were uneventful. The whispers ceased. The chill winds were no more. The office returned to being just that, an office. As I carried on with my night shifts, I could feel a sense of normalcy return. Yet, every time I walked past the 13th floor, I would remember Elizabeth Harper, the woman who turned my simple night shift into a horrifying yet transformative journey. The woman who taught me that sometimes the most terrifying experiences could lead to the most profound changes. I was no longer just Jacob Kessler, the custodian. I was Jacob Kessler, the man who freed a tormented soul. It was a story no one would believe, a tale of horror and redemption that was mine alone to cherish. The haunting at Malone Sons was over, but its memories would forever echo in the quiet corridors of the office building and in the heart of a simple night shift custodian.